soldier flies and the other micro businesses that are within the African continent with great potentials for the youth to tap into. If you're tuning in for the very first time on this channel, welcome. And please like, share, subscribe so that more people can join us on the live streaming. I would really appreciate everyone dropping in a comment or joining us to support the youth on this venture that we are building on this platform. Thank you all very much for those who have already subscribed. And if you've not subscribed to this channel already, what else are you waiting for? I'm your humble boy, Terry Poch from the Roots. Please, thank you. Before we start, guys, we heard about the sudden passing of the Queen of England, His Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II. She rested in the Lord this evening at approximately 6:30 p.m. Today, the 8th of September 2002. I was just going to say if we can put our hands together and give her a minute of silence in respect of her life. This would really be appreciated, especially by all who are directly impacted by her passing, her immediate family, and all her loved ones. Thank you all very much for that minute of silence. I pray that may God give her family the strength to overcome her death. She died at a very good age, the age of 96. Right, guys, let's dive into our topic for today. I did put on my communication to say, or on the community side to say, we would be talking about biogas, we'll talk about the black soldier fly, and we are also going to talk about all the crops in the continent that we can add value to in order to increase our value chain. The first thing that I'm going to talk about or start with is the biogas. There is a very massive potential for biogas in the continent, and a lot of people have actually lots of people do not have an idea that these potentials are actually existing, and they're finding different ways to either power their homes or finding different ways to produce gas for cooking and doing other and finding other renewable source of energy. So biogas, to start with, is a renewable energy and is very cost effective. When we talk mostly about biogas, the main ones that people would think or others know and they will first of all think about are things like the solar power, or we will also think about the wind power. But we have other source of biogas which are very easy to produce, and we can produce this from materials or resources that are just around us, and it is very sustainable, it is clean and renewable energy. As I said before, these have great potentials in Africa, and the main reason why these have great potentials in Africa is because at this point in time, we have a lot of materials that we can use to produce biogas in the continent. So biogas in essence is breaking down organic material in absence of oxygen. So this will consist mostly of carbon dioxide and methane. The reason we are on this platform is to give young entrepreneurs ideas that they are existing out there, and they can then go further to research on them and see how they can develop the concept to then build on it, and why not excel in it, generate employment and improve their livelihood and their community, or to make a difference. There are different sources for biogas. We have dump sites, which are like the landfill gas. You have places where when all domestic waste are collected and dump them, and then the landfill looks clouded, it might be stinking and not smelling. But what people don't realize is that that is a massive potential for entrepreneurs to use this to their advantage to produce biogas. We also have the sewage or the human waste. The sewage or human waste, literally, it's our own droppings, straight into the toilet. Every human uses the toilet, so you know exactly what I mean by us going to the toilet and dropping the number two. And this is a very massive, massive potential, especially in the African continent, where people still use pit toilets, or what we refer to as latrine, where we all our depositions go in there, and when it's full, they bring the honeysucker, or they bring these trucks that come to suck out the sewage or the waste, and then they'll take it and they'll dump it somewhere, maybe in a river, and end up contaminating the waters and things like that. But this sewage that has been drained out are actually great potentials for producing biogas, and it should not be wasted in the first place. I've watched a documentary where the human feces, or which I refer to as a sewage, has been used to produce renewable energies such as coal, which is very clean, and it do not produce smoke, and they've used it in different commercial stage to produce really to cook and produce great things. So the human waste or feces or sewage, which we refer to, is a very great potential for producing biogas, and that's something that we should not waste for anything in this world. People might be thinking that, oh, this is smelling, why should I be using human waste or trying to manage human waste? But this is done everywhere in the world, and it is a great potential in Africa, which we do not recycle at this point in time in most communities or African countries, to produce clean energy, which can then be used by your community and others. And as, of course, as a result, you are in business. We also have agricultural material. So you have people, after the market and the remaining of the produce, and they don't, or the remaining of the products they haven't sold, vegetables and other perishables, and they dump them. These are massive opportunities for entrepreneurs to put this together, compose them, and they will produce things like biogas. We also have the natural biogas, which is mainly found in two countries in the African continent, in some of the lakes in Rwanda and the lakes in Cameroon. So these two countries have natural biogas from their lakes, which can be exploited, which can be tapped. And this is massive, massive potential for entrepreneurs, especially now that the cost of energy is rising as a result of inflation, and everyone is struggling, or every household is looking alternative energy for their homes. In Rwanda or in Cameroon, where we have these natural biogases, we've also heard some consequences, or if we reflect back in time, we heard about the Lake Nyos disaster in the Cameroon, which was the immersion of the gas from the lake, which eventually killed a lot of people. I know there are different stories which are related to what happened and why those people died. We must respect their memory on this channel, and we must say may they continue to rest in peace. However, I think research has shown that there was actually a lot of gas which was under that lake, which can be tapped, and this is a great potential which has not been exploited to today. Biogas are mainly produced using man-made biodigesters. I know some, for those who have the capital, they can build a biodigester, which looks like a treatment plant for all this waste. But for others, they will use very small traditional means of biodigesters, which also work for them. For example, I've seen in different the families, I've seen in different programs how local biodigesters have been constructed, and the main source of the product that they use in nurturing their digesters to produce the biogas was the cow dung, for example. So they use this cow dung, cow dung. So this is being put in water, it's been mixed, and then they dig a borehole, which look like a well, and this is being put in there, and it is closed and covered with the absence of the oxygen. As I said before, this is going to produce methane gas, which is a very renewable, clean energy that can then be piped into your homes, and you lit up the stove, and you are good to go. So these are things that people can do locally. Those who live local to farms or cattle ranch and places like that, they can use this to their advantage to produce biogas into their own homes, and they will never buy gas again. As I said, because of gas and energy fast rising. We also have other research programs that they've gone as far as producing this biogas and putting them and retaining them in bottles or in balloon bags, and then they use them in different commercial environment. The biggest niche here is that you can use a school campus feces to produce biogas that can then be supplied in those school kitchens for cooking. Many people hearing this might be thinking, how can they be cooking with gas coming from our feces? But that's what is being done everywhere around the world. Feces are being recycled. They use it either for manure, and the byproduct of it is the biogas. So if you can do this in private institutions, you can do it, or lobby with the government to even do it in government universities or government schools, where you can produce biogas using the waste or the feces that goes straight into those pit holes and being sucked by the sun honeysuckles away. And this is going to be a great business potential for anyone that can look to tap into that sector or into that particular industry. Africa has a vast potential and untapped resources, being it organic, inorganic materials. This can be used to produce renewable energies in the continent. And I will urge and encourage everyone who feels that they have the zeal to build a community, they have the zeal to improve their people, they have the zeal to do something different that they'll be proud of in life. They can travel to any African country from the diaspora if you have the capital, and those who are in Africa who have the capital and also tap into these great potentials. I'll urge mostly the youth who are going to school and they study science and just doing agriculture and things like that. I will advise them to invest their time more in researching on how they can produce biogas for their community and to use it. Why not nationally? And someday we'll be talking about exporting biogases to areas that are actually lacking. But if every African child in their own community or schools at any level comes out and start practicing or learning how to produce biogas, this is going to help solve the energy problem that we are facing around the world. The second interesting thing that I'm going to, or the massive business opportunity that we are going to talk about at this point, is the black soldier fly. There is no one who will say they've never seen the black soldier fly before. When I say the black soldier fly, lots of people will be thinking, what's the black soldier fly? The black soldier fly is the normal house fly that comes around mostly in the summer. In Africa, because places are warm and moist, we always have the black soldier fly all year round. They come in our house, they're around our toilets, they follow anything that is smelling just to fit and for them to drop their larvae. What I'm going to say about the black soldier fly, it is a very interesting insect. Apart from the buzzing noise that it goes, the black soldier fly is not harmful to human in any way, but in itself, it's a great business potential for entrepreneurs. If you look at the black soldier fly and how it grows, you will realize that you have two flies who meet at some point, and then they go ahead to lay their eggs, and then these eggs end up converting themselves into larva, pupa, then they will get to a stage where they will become flies again. Right, I'll break this down in a more simpler way for entrepreneurs to understand. What I've said from the beginning is that we are on this platform to bring ideas, and for the entrepreneurs who we have on this platform, for them to then develop this concept and build a business out of it. The idea we are bringing here is about the production of black soldier flies. If you want to build a business in black soldier fly, there are lots of advantages that comes with them. Black soldier fly, to start with, is a good source of protein for other animals or other farming for feeding other birds, especially those who are in the fish industry. They can they will have the larva to or when it gets to the pupa stage or the larva stage, they can use them to feed their fish. You can use it to feed the chickens if you are in poultry business. So black soldier flies are really, really a massive food source of food for other animals farming. So this is how to go about it. If you want to build a black soldier fly business, what you should do is collect domestic waste, for example. You probably need zero capital for you to build a black soldier fly business as an entrepreneur. You are actually solving environmental problems such as waste management by you investing in this venture or trying to tap into this venture. So what you do is collect home waste or food waste from either households or maybe from the markets after the market hours, perishables which have been thrown away. All you can do is to put a bin next to the market and encourage everyone who is selling in the market to put things like tomatoes, every vegetable, which can then be converted into or in a vegetable that can then be converted into a waste product. If you put all this together, you will realize that the black soldier flies are going to follow these things themselves. You don't even need to do this as we speak. As I said, my battery is running low, so let me try to connect this laptop. Put the power cable on. So here we go. So I've got that. So just put power on as we speak. So I was talking about how we collect waste to produce black soldier flies. So what I was saying in essence is if you take home waste or waste from the market, you are actually solving environmental problems. But you bring all this waste together, you can even put something like meat, for example, anything that can attract flies, anything that can attract a fly to come into this waste to start eating them is what you want to do. So what you do in essence is introduce things in your waste that will attract the flies. Once the flies start coming, they are going to then lay their eggs. They will lay their eggs. While they're eating, they'll also be laying their eggs, which is why if we put meat outside or if we put any food waste somewhere, by the time you come back in 1 or 2 days, you see some very tiny maggots, as we always refer to them. They look like maggots. They're very tiny maggots, but they pour larvae. So, when they drop the eggs, because the eggs are too tiny, you probably will not see them. But when they convert them into those little maggots or the larva, you will then be able to see them moving around. But if you leave it there, if you leave the larva in that food waste and just give it 1 or 2 days, by the time you come back, you will realize that those larvae are now gradually growing. So these larvae will grow to stage 1, they'll go to stage 2, they'll fast forward to stage 3, 4. By the time they get to stage 6, they'll become pre-pupa. So pre-pupa, and from the pre-pupa, they'll become proper pupa, and which means that the maggot or the larva, as I referred to, has now grown and is now matured, and then it's start turning brown or black to start producing wings to then eventually turn back again into fly. So what you do at every production stage all does matter. So from the collection of your food waste, introduction of the eggs, introduction of the flies, and then the flies are going to lay their eggs, and then these eggs are also then going to turn into small maggots or larvae, and then they will grow into matured larvae. They will go into pupa stage, and then they'll become fly. How do this become a business? When you've collected all these waste and you introduce the fly in them, within 2 or 3 days, you realize that those flies or has produced this eggs and larvae, and they've eaten all this waste. They've helped you clean the environment by eating all the waste. Now it is in a very well controlled or contained environment. So the environment might sound a bit smelling, but you should focus on the result. So what you then do once this becomes larva or the growth and they are matured is you either feed your chicken with them the way they are, because those are very massive, juicy protein for the chicken. So for those who are in poultry industry, this is a great potential to look at. You produce free feed for your chicken. So this is an alternative source of food for your chicken. For you to make this even sustainable, you can actually dry them. So they have a sort of an incubator, which, as I said, anyone who wants to venture on this can then research on how to dry them. So there's an incubator which you set at a particular temperature to dry this larva for you, and then you can even keep them for a year or 2 years. The same way you can store your feed, and then you use that to feed either the fish, or you can use it to feed your chicken. And it's a very good source of protein for fish and chicken, and that's what they need to grow. So always think positive is what I want to say, because the two business ideas that I've got here definitely means the management of waste product, and the source of their products are either domestic waste or cleaning the environment in order to attain or achieve this. So focus on what so you should focus on the result rather than the process, because if you start thinking that, oh, domestic waste are smelling, so why do I want to get involved in that? I remember mentioning this to one of my friends. He said, well, I'm going to talk about black soldier fly on this channel today, and they said to me, what's that about? So I said, well, using maybe some waste to produce maggot, and this maggot can then go on to feed the chicken. And he said to me, oh, is that not how coronavirus came about? No. Domestic waste of feces is being recycled everywhere around the world to produce gas or produce food for other animals. And that's very sustainable and easy access way for a young entrepreneur to build an entire empire for themselves. So this business idea on black soldier fly, I don't think is been explored, or this has been looked into or tapped into by many youth in the continent. We have flies, as I said, all year round. This is something you should look at if you really want to build a potential business for the future for yourself. Look into black soldier flies. From the black soldier flies, as I said, we were going to talk about how to add value to things that we farm and the things that we produce in the continent. So I would have said in one of my last video about preparing our kids for school, If you haven't watched that video, please check it out. It was about children graduating from either secondary or high school or university, and going into the job industry or moving into higher education. If you check it out, I did mention there briefly about how we can add values to farm product. Um, Today, I want to expatiate on that, as I did say on the last video. So what I want to talk about is um, perishable goods that we have in the continent. If you travel across Africa, you'll realize that we have things that we refer to as a travel break. You know, when you drive a few kilometers or a few miles, depending on which country you are, there would be a service or services where you stop to either have a bite, have something to eat also. And when you get there, you realize that lots of people who are trading, who are selling either fruits, some are selling food, some are selling meat, some are selling all sort of things that you can imagine or you want to buy. I know here in the diaspora, you have a service which you probably say, listed as different restaurants, and there'll be some side shops on it also. But in Africa, you have people who are literally out there struggling to make these sales individually, to meet their basic needs. That is their hustle, which we must respect and we must support, and we must, uh, um, uh, you know, um, trade with them if you have the means. But what I want to say is, if you look around you and what they are doing, you realize the different things that they are selling in that same community. So, for an entrepreneur, if you look around, you think, well, so what's happening here? How can I lobby all of this to my own advantage? The first thing that I will say is, when you travel and you see these things, it's coming like in the evening now, and people are trying to auction them because they are ready to go home. They're willing, well, they are ready to go home. And so a child might be selling mangoes, for example, or watermelon, or they might be selling the papaya, or they'll be selling oranges. But because they know if they take this mango home, you know, it's just going to go bad because they will definitely not eat them, and because there's just too many, and they want to convert it to cash, no matter how small. If they're not bought, eventually they will throw these mangoes at some point away. What a waste! What a massive waste! These mangoes being thrown away, or all these fruits that they were being thrown away, they didn't only go to pollute the environment, they didn't only go to make the place look dirty, nasty, then attract all sort of diseases that you can imagine, but it is a waste. And this is a great potential for an entrepreneur. So if it is an area where they do fruits, for example, what you should be looking at is, how can I add value to these fruits? So you can start looking at how you can stay around in the evenings, the time where they auction all these fruits, you collect them and you use them overnight to process juice, which can then be sold the next day as fresh juice while they're busy selling their fruits. So some people would like to just have some fresh juice rather than to have um, the fruits, which is also an option. Secondly, you can then start thinking on packaging. How can this be packaged and being used long term? So you would have seen that different countries or different companies or big companies, let's put it that way, which obviously as a startup, you can't really compete with them. They've already won the market and they're doing their own great and big things. We know very well that sometimes they kind of hold the monopoly in their hands and there's very little we can do, but we can start from somewhere. You can start by producing your own fruits, and trying to produce the juice. Make sure that you involve science in it. You involve a lot of research in the process so that it is fit for human consumption, and then you can market it locally in those areas. You can market it locally in schools in those communities. You can market it to the villages in those communities where these giant companies do not easily get there. So that's where you start building a market for yourself. And before you know, you will join the township competition, and you'll be taking most people unaware on where you've just arrived from. If you are in the community where they have things like the Irish potatoes, which we refer to, or they have the sweet potatoes, or they have cassava, or they sell a lot of plantain, even banana, what you should be looking is trying to produce things like plantain chips, uh, the potatoes chips, or any form of chips that can be produced from these root plants that can last for a month, 2, 3, why not a year? So, and I start thinking on how these can be packaged. It can be sold. You can sell them locally. It can be sold in your bigger markets, and you can also dream big and target the international market. So these are things that you can do if you are in a community where they have that particular product in excess. So that's what you can do. So the third that I was going to talk about are spices. Spices, there is no one who would cook a single dish without adding in an aroma for on it to taste. Before we used to talk about Maggi or Maggi. Maggi is a generic name now, but we have different types of Maggi. You hear about Maggi crevette, Maggi tomato, yeah, jumbo. So there are a lot of different spices that have been put together to produce this product that's been used by everyone everywhere, and it is well nourished or well received for decades and decades and decades. There is no one who cook without using some spices on their table. What I can say is there's a massive potential in this industry. If you are from the communities where they farm a lot of spices, you are not only building a business for yourself, but you are also trying to add value to the farmers produce, and you're also trying to build a market for them. So you sitting as an intermediary, young entrepreneurs aspiring, they've done a lot of research. They've seen that these spices are needed in this particular community. Yes, you can move them from one community to another fresh, but also think of sustainable. How is it that if celery or tomatoes are produced in the raining season, how can we then have tomatoes in the dry season? That's what you should always look at. And then you do a bit of research to see how this can be, how can we preserve the tomatoes, which are very perishable in the rainy season, to then have them in the dry season. So this is the kind of thing that you should look at. So um, by doing so, you'll be thinking about plum tomatoes, or trying to put tomatoes in cans, or trying to put the tomatoes in cans, and and that's already adding value to them, so they can be preserved for longer. Then you can even export them. So the spices, you can think about drying them, you think about branding them, getting packaging, and try to sell them in different markets, or sell them in the seasons where the short of supply. So if the vegetables grow up in that community, mostly in the raining season, you can then dry these vegetables and dry these spices also, and then you bought them, package it very nicely, and you sell them in the market in the dry season. So the demand would always be there, and that product will exist all year round. But you are actually saving the environment from these products to be not they were being wasted by being thrown away when they're no longer fit for consumption. At the same time, you're adding value to the farmers' produce. That's something that you should always look or tap into. I just want to say there are a lot of different agri sector that you can invest in, and they would give you great, great, great potentials across the continent. So I've talked mainly on farm products today, but I think next time we are going to focus animals, uh, on animals and birds production when we come on, so we can explore on which best animals production or which birds we can actually invest in that they are more sustainable, and share our thoughts on how best you can invest in that industry and support one another for us to grow. We are on a mission to change the African mindset, to build young African entrepreneurs and build future African millionaires. Thank you guys very much for watching. Just for a recap, we started with biogas, biodigesters, producing renewable, clean energy for your environment as the prices of gases shoot up. And we went into the production of black soldier flies, and talking about using domestic waste to produce little larvas that can grow into pupa, and we can use it to feed our chickens and and also the fish on our ponds. So, and we've also touched on perishable produce or product that we can look at in order to add value or to them. The other perishable products that they keep coming on my mind and skipping was cocoa. So that's something that is very big. Every it's every community here in the diaspora, they drink coffee, they eat chocolate, and so, and there's no cocoa tree or plants here in the diaspora or in the West. This is all in Africa. So this is something that it's a very, very massive, huge potential. Have a massive, huge potential, not for us to uh, uh, sell cocoa beans or sell our coffee beans as well, but it is actually for us to add value to our coffee and the cocoa beans. So if you are in a community where they produce cocoa and you are in a community where they produce coffee, what you can do is form a farmers engagement club also, and you try to find the best market as well for their product. When I say the best market for the product, you can act as intermediary to sell their product between the from the farm to our own local industries. Or what you can do yourself if you then have the bigger capital, and this is where those with their capital in Africa or those with their capital in the diaspora comes in. You can set up a small plant in that village where you can use to either just take just open this coffee or find an alternative way to dry the cocoa without necessarily them spreading it on the floor for months and months and hoping for this cocoa to dry. If you just have a cocoa drying plant where the cocoa is split today, they drop them in the machine. Within the next 24 hours, the cocoa is dried and packed away. I tell you, you'll be in millions because you are saving energy and time from the farmers to return back to the farms and they become more productive. Also, if you wants to go further from that, you can also try to have a machine that would then take the peelings of the cocoa, which can also be used as a byproduct for different things, including biodigesters, because that's domestic waste, and then our nuts, which are the gold, our golden vegetable, which are the nuts in the coconut. We can then use them to, we can just use those nuts now to produce local made chocolate. When I say local made chocolates, they are the best chocolates that exist in the world, and we name them after the village which that cocoa comes from. And that's the most important thing to always note, because by starting to name our product after where they come from, we are adding value to them. There's no need for someone frying potatoes chips that the potatoes come from uh, 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 Cameroon, and they call it French fries, or the potato is coming from Rwanda, Ghana, Burundi, or it's coming from Tanzania, and they're calling it French fries. They're not French fries. If they're coming from your local village in the Ashanti, Shona, and Gemba, you should name it after those villages, and that's where you start adding value to them. So that's not just something I wanted to talk about, because I've seen a lot of companies naming uh, their brand, which is really dear and local to them, after foreign names, which do not reflect where this product actually come from. So local made chocolates are the best chocolates, because our chocolate coming from our own cocoa, straight from the farm, and that's what people will sought after around the world. So that's something we should always respect and name it after where they come from. For the coffee beans, it should be the same thing. Be an intermediary, invest in it, try to get machines that can peel, dry, and also process coffee. That's something that you can do as an entrepreneur in the continent. There's a massive, massive perishable product as well that exists in the continent, which is coconut. Sorry, coconut. Coconut is also a massive potential for young entrepreneurs, either for the production of coconut water, which is then being used to cook rice and other uh, juicy delicacies around the world, or um, using the coconut itself to make coconut chips, which is something that we still need to advertise and market. Every time I travel to Africa and I bring the coconut sweet here, my friends will be asking me, or my colleagues will be asking, where do you get this from? How can I get it? Why are they not sold in the market? They are very good snacks. And you will see for yourself that these are very good snacks and your colleagues are fighting them. But if you ask me or any other African that, why don't we take this to the stage and expand on it? We have coconuts all over Africa, especially within the coastal regions, and they will just fall off. They will rust into the sea. They will open the coconuts, and then we make a mess everywhere with them. But trust me, or we end up burning the peelings behind those coconuts, and it forms a lot of pollution around our communities, which is something else I'll talk about. But the coconut in itself we can use the water for production of coconut water, which can then be sold around the world. We can use the coconut itself to do coconut sweets, which can also be marketed and sold around the world. But the peelings of those coconuts, please, this is a massive potential for young entrepreneurs. This is where you also come in. Anything that goes to dirty the environment is where I've always asked every entrepreneur to focus on, because people will complain about it. They will say there's a massive dump site here. People keep burning their coconut peelings, and this is causing a lot of pollution, smoke. Where there's a complaint, there's always an opportunity for an entrepreneur. I will advise every young entrepreneur who lives in communities where there is coconut, should they can focus and learn on how to convert these coconut peelings into renewable energy. If you don't know how to go about this, please research on it I've watched a documentary about this in Ghana, where one guy sacrificed his university days to collect the coconut peelings just so he can use them to produce charcoal or coal. So if you this is something that you can research on if you have your capital to travel around Africa, try to make contacts, visit people who are doing it. As I said before, my position here is to tell you where the opportunities are. It is now your job to research and try to see how you can tap or invest on that industry. So there are a lot of opportunities that we can continue to discuss about perishable product on or how to add value to them in the continent. So, but I understand that we've been on for over 50 something minutes, and I appreciate everyone who's clicked in, anyone who's come online and has participated or has been here with us. I really appreciate you all. If you've subscribed to this channel already, thank you very much again. And for those who are seeing us for the first time, please subscribe and become part of this awesome family. We are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, God willing. And I know very well and trust this happy family. They will share these videos, people will subscribe, and we are going to get there so that we can educate our Africa and we can educate the future generation, and we will build the future African millionaire. I remain your humble boy here, Terry Fudge from the roots. Thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good evening and goodbye. Again, I respect to the memory of Her Majesty. Thank you.